الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with the fiqh, and we will talk inshallah ta'ala tonight about the chapter of Al-Ariya. فصل والعارية سنة. Al-Ariya Sunnah, correct? Oh. So let me get the page. So we finished Al-Musabaqa. So he says والعارية Sunnah. والعارية Sunnah. That means it's recommended, and it's a good deed. And the meaning of Al-Ariya, as he says, وَكُلُّ مَا يُنْتَفَعُ بِهِ. It's basically, Al-Ariya is when someone would give something as lend someone something. It's not lend, it's, and even if they call it borrowing, but when you borrow something to benefit from it, and Al-Ain, or the original status of the item, stays the same. So, إباحة نفع. نفع, that means you give something for someone to benefit from it, whether it's indefinite or with a definite time, مع بقاء العين, as it's going to be mentioned, where it stays the same. So this is al-ariya. And that's different than giving someone a loan, whether it's an item or not. Meaning, you can give someone your car as a ariya. Means that he's going to return the same car. You give it to him as a ariya, that means he'll take it, he'll drive it for some time, and then he'll bring it back to you. This is as a good deed from you. Not for money. For money, it's going to be in the chapter of what? If you give your car for someone and for a month, for muawada, he's going to give you iwad, compensation. He's going to give you money. This is what the name of this contract? Ijara, right? With the rules of al-ijara, lease or renting. But if you give someone something, the second case. If you give someone a car as a qard, the word qard, when he returns it, right? Can he return it money or car, or what is upon him? The value of it. If you give someone a car as a qard, as a loan, he doesn't have to bring you that same car. He can give you the value of it or the like of it, and so on. Al-Ariya is when you give someone the same thing, a car, but he has to return to you the same car and without money. So this is why it says وَالْعَارِيَةُ sunnah. It's a good deed. So it's a contract still between two parties, but it's done as a good deed. The person does not seeking any money from it. So you see the difference here, because everything has its own ahkam and ruling. Especially these ahkam becomes very clear when there's disputes. That's why the subject of al-daman comes as a result of that. Who is liable? What's the liabilities upon who? Depends on what the nature of the contract. So this is what al-ariya being sunnah, that means it's manduba, that means it's recommended. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when in Surah Al-Ma'un, وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَعُونَ, the disbelievers, they do not give al-ma'un. Al-ma'un is what yuntafa'u bihi, what people would, or fiha i'ana, someone would be in need of a help, and they would not even give people things that they would need help for, even if it's easy. You know, someone knock on your door, your neighbor, and he wants to borrow your pot to fix food. Halal, of course, right? This is ariya. If you give him the pot, this is ariya, and this is a good thing. It's a good deed, and they would return it back. What if they break it? What if it get lost? You know, there's implications to this, but it's in the category of al-ariya. If you say to that person, listen, I'm going to give you my pot, you know, but this and that, and you can give me something in return, and there's other rulings can be applied. So again, وَالْعَارِيَةُ sunnah. Then he talks about the definition and the conditions of it. He says, وَكُلُّ مَا يُنْتَفَعُ بِهِ مَعَ بَقَاءِ عَيْنِهِ نَفْعًا مُبَاحًا تَصِحُّ إِعَارَتُهُ. So this is the definition, and also includes in it what is valid for people to give as a ariya, meaning to give as a ariya. What's the word of ariya in English? First of all, al-ariya comes from, you know, when something is naked, it comes from the same meaning, al-urji. That means it's ariya, it has no benefits or no financial benefits from it. right? You're giving someone something to benefit from it, right? So I'm not sure if the word borrowing, it's not really sharing. So maybe we can figure out a term for it. Borrowing is sounds okay, right? But it's again, it's not like a loan, right? So it's the person will take it, and many hadith that talks about the virtue of it. Manihatul anza, for example, where someone would give a goat with milk to his neighbor, to his friend. He would take it as a ariya. He would drink from its milk for a month or whatever, and then he returns it back. This is one of the best of the good deeds, as the Prophet ﷺ said. So this is in the category of al-ari. He did not give him to him as a ijara, but as a good deed. So he says here, وَكُلُّ, this is now the definition and what's valid. وَكُلُّ مَا يُنْتَفَعُ بِهِ. Kull is from صيغ العموم. And the word kull means, it gives this general meaning. Everything that يُنْتَفَعُ بِهِ. From al-manfa'a, anything that can be benefited from. مع بقاء عينه. So anything that is benefiting while al-ayn, or the item itself in its original form, stays without being changed. مع بقاء عينه. So anything that is, so the first point is al-intifa'. Al-Ariya has to have something that people would benefit from it. بقاء العين means that item itself is not lost, or it's not to be returned in its value, or something the like of it. No, the same thing is to be returned. That's why al-ayn, not something في الذمة. Now we're developing the different terminologies, right? Al-ayn versus al-dhimma. في الذمة, something in one's liability, something that doesn't have to be the same item. But here مع بقاء عينه, البقاء is to stay, is not ruined. مع بقاء عينه, the ayn stays the same. نفعا مباحا. نفعا here after ينتفع. So the نفع is a benefiting thing that is mubah, permissible. So that takes away the haram. If someone, you know that he's going to use it for haram, then it's not permissible for, of course, to give him a ari. نفعا مباحا, permissible. تصح إعارته, then if that's the case, then it's valid from صحيح to إعارته, to give it as إعارة, or to give it as a as إعارة, to, which is the word إعارة here, to give it without anything in return, for that person to borrow it for nothing in return. And there is more details into the naf' and mubah, not just the mubah versus the haram, but we're taking it in the primitive sense here, because sometimes a person might, it's not permissible for someone to purchase a specific matter unless he needs it. A dog, for example. It's not permissible to have a dog unless a person needs it for the farm or something like this. So if someone gives his dog as a ariya to his neighbor because he's worried that someone, might take his stuff, or something like this, it's permissible, to give him a dog, even though it's it's mubah in the sense that it's permissible to have it, but in certain circumstances, not to have it, for example, to give it to him to have it at home inside the house, for example. So things like that to be observed. So نفعا مباحا تصح, all of that is permissible. إلا, so there's exceptions here. إلا البضع, and البضع is basically the something to do with intimate relations. So for someone to give his his slave girl, for example, to someone else, of course, this is not permissible. So human beings like that, where it's haram because this is haram. So this is not permissible. وعبدا مسلما لكافر. عبد Muslim, a Muslim slave, it's not permissible to give him as a ariya to a disbeliever. Al-Abd al-Muslim, if someone would give him to someone else to help him, he's moving, for example, so he would send his abd to him to help him. That's fine. And it's a good thing. And the abd is to be taken care of. But if it's to a kafir, it's not permissible. And the illah, or the ulama, they say the illah, the reason for that is that the Muslim is not supposed to be humiliated by the kafir. So the abd is going to be humiliated by the kafir. The kafir will treat the abd in a humiliating way, in which the Muslim, he will treat him according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from him. So وَعَبْدًا مُسْلِمًا لِكَافِرٍ. The third exception, وَصَيْدًا وَنَحْوَهُ لِمُحْرِمٍ. وَصَيْدًا وَنَحْوَهُ. A sayd is the game or when someone, what's the best word for side? Game? Hunting animals. So to give a side. And the like of this to a muhrim. Al-muhrim, if someone is in state of ihram for Hajj or Umrah, it is not permissible for him to hunt an animal. It's not permissible for him to help someone to hunt an animal, as we know that if he's with a group of people and a deer is coming, it is not permissible for the muhrim, the one in the state of ihram, to go after it or to kill it. It's not permissible for him to say to someone that is not muhrim, hey, there's a deer here, go get it. It's haram for him to do that. So whether it's to do it, what is it, to help with it, to give him the gun to shoot it, all of these things are not permissible for the muhrim. So therefore, it is not permissible to give a ariya sayd. Someone is not in state of al-ihram, right? He's not muhrim, and he hunted an animal, halal for him, perfect, mashallah, and it's not permissible for him to give it to a muhrim because the muhrim is not permissible for him to deal with hunting animals, even if he didn't hunt it for him. So this is wasaydan. وَنَحْوَهُ نحوه and the like of this, meaning the ala, the tool that is used for hunting or anything of this nature. Right? So to give as a ariya from the muhrim or to be given to him, this is all not permissible because the muhrim is not supposed to hunt animals or to help to hunt animals while he is in the state of al-ihram. Clear? The third or the fourth one, وَأَمَةً وَأَمْرَدَ لِغَيْرِ مَأْمُونٍ. وَأَمَةً وَأَمْرَدَ. Al-ama is the female. Amrad is the child or the one that is not yet in the state of below or state of purity. He's not having any hair on his face, just facial hair. So it is not permissible to give them to someone to work for someone else or to, the word is not lending them, right? Because you don't lend a human being to someone else. Like say, for even you have your child, right? He's 14 years old. And to someone is, he needs help in his house for some work. So you say to your child, why don't you go help so and so without nothing, with no money or anything. He says this is not permissible لغير مأمون. لغير مأمون, to someone that is not safe and secure to send him to. So again, and this is something, as you see, ulama, hundreds of years, they mention these things. So there's a condition here. If he's ma'moon, if he's someone that is secure, someone someone, there's no any doubts or any raib, there's no harm. But why? Because why the ama and the amrad? Because some people, they might have some sick people, something, they have issues, they have, things of that nature. So to avoid any misbehaving or something haram, to protect them. So وأمة وأمرد لغير مأمون. لغير مأمون. So clear? So again, وكل ما ينتفع به مع بقاء عينه. So الانتفاع is there, benefiting. The item itself, the specific item stays the same, and it's a permissible نفع. All of that is permissible except البضع. And if you remember, the word البضع is mentioned in the hadith, وفي بضع أحدكم صدقة. Meaning when a man has relations with his wife, the Prophet ﷺ said, وفي بضع. This is the بضع. And it's a very nice word to mention something like this. So when a person have this relations with his wife, he gets sadaqah. So al-bud'a, that's why it's a very decent word. And abd Muslim to a kafir, and sayd, hunting an animal and the like of that, and what associated with that to a muhrim, wa ama, wa amrad, we know the ama and the amrad, right? To someone that is غير مأمون. إن عذاب ربك إن عذاب ربهم غير مأمون. Remember, the punishment of your Lord is not, people are not secure from it, meaning anybody can be punished. So no one has a guarantee that he's not going to be punished. So ma'moon from al-amn, from the security. Then he says, وَتُضْمَنُ مُطْلَقًا. وَتُضْمَنُ مُطْلَقًا. وَتُضْمَنُ مُطْلَقًا, that means وَتُضْمَنُ مُطْلَقًا بِمِثْلِ مثلي. Here now the subject of al-daman. This is here the subject of al-daman, that al-Ariya madmuna. And this is, there's a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam العارية عارية مضمونة, meaning who will guarantee, who's liable for the عارية. Someone gave his car as a عارية, and then the person took the car and he crashed the car. It's damaged. Who's liable for it? المستعير, the one that took it, at all times, whether it's his negligence or not his negligence. So this is special thing for al-i'ara. If you take a book from the library, right, and the book get ruined, and it's not your fault, you still have to return. Then he's gonna talk بمثل مثلي, whether it's the like of it, the value of it, that's a different situation. But al-ariya madmun, by the statement of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, different than the other things that we mentioned before. And why is that? One of which is that al-ariya is a good deed. So you want people to be given things, right? So if people are, you can take something as a good deed like this from someone, and it got ruined, and he's going to lose it. This is to encourage people to do the good deeds, as the illah, as the wisdom behind it. So because the person, he received al-ariya, he received that thing without having to pay money for it. It's a good deed from the one that is giving. So he is to be treated then accordingly. So if it get ruined, then it's upon the one that took it. وتضمن مطلقا. مطلقا means in the absolute sense. بمثل مثلي وقيمة غيره يوم تلف. بمثل مثلي. مثل is what? The like of, right? مثلي, we mentioned the مثلي before. المثلي is, according to the words of fiqh, literally means, first of all, مثلي means the like of things, right? Or مثلي. But المثلي is what can be بالوزن أو الكيل. According to the matters of fiqh, if it's something that is weight, to be given the like of it with weight. If it's something that can be measured with volume, is to give the like of it with volume. So this is when it says وَتُضْمَنْ, that means it's ruined, it's lost, right? So in that case, if it's something that can be weighed, you can buy the same thing from the store by weight. So someone gave someone else something that can be purchased with weight. He gave it to him as a عارية, and he's going to return it back. Not sure what would be an example for that. So then if it got ruined, and it can be, say for example, wood, right? Wood, to not to burn it, but because if it's burned, then it's not necessarily a عارية that he has to return it. This is just to give it to him as a good deed. But if it's something that he can put it, see, for example, guests are coming, so you just want to put some wood in the in the fire thing. For example, just to look nice. I'm just making up an example here. So if you give it to him as a ariya, and that wood got burned, well, you can bring the like of the wood. You can bring exactly the same thing. So the daman here will be bimithli mithli. If it's mithli, you can bring the like of it exactly. And usually it's with the things that get weight or something that is measured by volume, that it has to be returned in the same way. But if it's something that is not mithli, something that you cannot bring exactly the same thing. The car, it's not a mithli. You can say the same brand, the same year, but it's going to be different from the one that he ruined, for example. Then in that case, وَقِيمَةِ غَيْرِهِ. Qima is the value of it. So to give the value of it, how much it's worth, or if the other person agrees to be given to him something else, that's fine. This is all if there's no agreement. But if there's agreement, he can forgive, he can give him something, and he'll be satisfied with it. It can be a different type of a car that has the same value or close or even more, doesn't matter, because it's all based on a good deed. But in disputes, if it's mithli, then it has to give the like of it exactly. If it's not mithli, if it's not something that can be very precisely given the like of it, then it's with the qima, and the qima is the value. Right? And we talked about al-mithli wal-value. But in general, in fiqh, what's the mithli? Al-mawzoon wal-makeel. Remember this and write it down. Al-mawzoon wal-makeel. The things that are known with weight or with volume. This is what al-mithli in most of the matters of fiqh. The other things, al-qima, something that is manufactured. So it's not purchased, it's not known that you can bring the like of it, something manufactured, a chair, a car, whatever there is. So then it's the qima, it's the value of it. But then يوم تلف, what is the qima? What is the value? What time, what date, what the date that it was ruined. So for example, the car he purchased it new in 2015. It was for 20,000. When he gave it to Ariya to someone, he gave it to him when in year 2024. And the car is worth 4,000. The day that he ruined it was in 2024. So the day of when it was ruined, this is the value that he needs to give back to the one that is the owner. So he might have borrowed it in 2016. It was worth 15,000, right? But he ruined it. He crashed the car 2024. The car lost, depreciated its value, become 3,000. So how much that person should give the owner? The value of it when he crashed it. Right? So this is the meaning of يوم تلف. So this is what matters. Not by the date when they wrote the contract or they gave him as a ariya. Again, he gave it to him as a good deed. So it's the day when it got ruined. وقيمة غيره يوم تلف. And all of these rulings can be changed according to the good gesture of each one and things like this. This is just in the minimum in state of disputes. Clear? وتضمن مطلقا بمثل مثلي وقيمة غيره يوم تلف. Is it clear? Then he says لا إن تلفت باستعمال بمعروف كخمل من شفة and more. So لا إن, so this is an exception. So الضمان, the guarantee is in the absolute sense. Either it's مثلي or مقوم or it has a value. But this ضمان has exceptions. So to guarantee or to have the liability, it's not in the absolute sense, meaning if in تلفت, if this عارية, if this item got ruined باستعمال بمعروف, as a result of using it, that's what الاستعمال بمعروف, with what's known to be the normal use of it. Before we mention the example here, is again, you give someone a car as for him to drive. And it's past years. So after some years, of course, the car is not the same. If it's a normal use of it, the normal wear and tear of it, or you give him a watch, right? And you give it to him to borrow it for a couple of years. After a couple of years, the normal wear and tear of the watch, then he does not guarantee or does not have to give you the differences in price, for example. In the case of عاري. Clear? كخمل من شفة. خمل من شفة. المنشفة is the towel, the thing that dries up things. الخمل is, from الخمائل, is the edges of it. The edges of it, if someone gives someone towels to use, after some time, the edges of it becomes the wear and tear in it. This is not something when he's returning it back, you say, well, I gave it to you brand new. But he used it in the normal use, so it's not the same as it was when it was new. So there's no daman here. He does not say, well, you have to bring me something exactly in the same status that I gave it to you. Why? Because it's استعمال بمعروف. It's been used according to the normal wear and tear of it, how he used it. ولا, another exception, ولا إن كانت وقفا ككتب علم إلا بتفريط. All of that is إلا بتفريط. ولا إن كانت وقفا, that means also if it's not waqf. And the waqf here is he gave someone something, استعار something, he took it as a عرية, that is waqf. Waqf, that means someone gave it for the sake of Allah, for people to use it for a matter of goodness. Like as, for example, ككتب علم, books of knowledge. If the masjid has books of knowledge where people can take it as a عرية. When people take, if the waqf is like this, not the masahif here in the masjid, these are waqf to the masjid. It is not permissible for someone to take it as a عرية, to read it and bring it back. Because according to the intention of al-waqif, and we'll talk about the waqf later. We talked about it before. But if the waqif is someone came to the masjid and he said, I want to give you my library, all religious books for isti'ara, for people to borrow it and to bring it back to the masjid. So that means whenever they take it, like any library, they have to bring it back. If they ruin it, then they have to bring exactly the same book or the value of it for them to purchase the like of it. But if it's used in a normal way, and when people take a book and they use it, right, so the wear and tear, the normal wear and tear of it, then he doesn't have to bring it the same way that he took it from the library. And of course, this has details in it. And ulama mentioned this because the importance of books of knowledge. Some people, they take the books of knowledge from a library and they start writing notes in it, right? This is not permissible. You're not taking it to write notes in it. So then there's domain on him. And he has to pay the same. You keep the book with you and bring us exactly the same one like it. Something like this. And they have to be clear in these matters. So لا ولا إن كانت وقفا, not even if it was waqf, for the sake of Allah, ككتب علم إلا بتفريط, except, so there's no domain in this case, even if it's waqf. So if it's waqf, someone would say it's waqf fi sabilillah. So there's no guarantee for it. The person gave it for the fi sabilillah. So if someone comes and ruins it, he says, I don't have to give something the like of it because that person gave it for the sake of Allah. No, you have to give the like of it. There's still domain on it. إلا بتفريط. Or he does not, or the wear and tear here, he doesn't have to give the like of it. Unless there is tafrit, unless there is negligence on his end, that means he has to guarantee it. So what's this last point here is, Al-Ariya. مضمونة, Al-Ariya is guaranteed and a person has to bring the like of it, except in the normal wear and tear or the normal use of things that is not, the domain does not apply on it. Is it clear? Every word is clear from what's mentioned. طيب, we have two more sentences. وعليه مؤنة ردها. وعليه means upon him. Who is the one here? It will be understood from the sentence. وعليه, and that is referred to al-musta'ir. Al-musta'ir is the one that borrowed it. So we have al-ariya is the thing, item. Al-mu'ir is the one that gave it. Al-musta'ir is the one that took it. So وعليه, upon the musta'ir, upon the one that took it, مؤنة ردها. Al-mu'na is is what a person is in need, in its original sense, what a person needs to fulfill a certain job. مؤونة العيش is what you need from food and drink and rent and all of these things to keep you going. So مؤنة ردها is for it to be returned. So it's upon the musta'ir, upon the one that borrowed it, the price or the amount of money that is needed for that item to be returned. Right? So if he took it and he traveled, and the time for him to return this item come and he has to return it back, who's the one that's supposed to pay for it to be returned, which is a very obvious thing, is upon the musta'ir. That's what it means. So he has to pay for the transportation, for anything like that, to return it to its original position, unless they forgive. وعليه مؤنة ردها. He says, وإن أركب منقطعا لله لم يضمن. The last مسألة here, وإن أركب. So this is the if statement. أركب, rakiba is ride over, ride something. أركب, always when you have the على وزن on the pattern of أفعل, that means someone else did that to another person. So أركب, that means someone made someone ride with him. Like أنزل, someone brought something down. Allah أنزل من السماء. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings down from the skies. Not نزل by itself. So here أركب, again you have to know the context. You say أنا أركب السيارة, I'm riding the سيارة. That's you. But if you say أركبت فلانا السيارة, that means I made so and so ride in my car. I gave him the permission to ride in my car. So وإن أركب منقطعا لله. المنقطع is the one that is severed from القطع, meaning wayfarer, someone stranded in the road. You picked up someone when you're traveling. You saw someone standing on the side, or your friend, or you don't know him, or you don't know him, it doesn't matter, right? So you took someone, you gave someone a ride for the sake of Allah and lillah. Because if you give someone a ride with price, that's in the subject of al-ijar. This is ijar. But if you help someone, if you give someone a ride, lillah, for the sake of Allah, they make it here under the ariya. Because it's for the sake of Allah, it's a good deed. وإن أركب منقطعا لله. That's منقطعا, someone that doesn't have any means but you. And it's لله. لم يضمن. He does not guarantee. Who's the one that is يضمن here? Or لا يضمن? Is الراكب. Is the one that you give him a ride. Right? So what does that mean? You give someone a ride and he's sitting next to you. And he's, mashallah, doing like that on the seat, and the seat breaks. He breaks the seat. Does he يضمن the seat? No. He does not have to fix your seat because you get him to ride in it for sabilillah. And that's what you get, alhamdulillah. Unless the person, he was doing something evil, that's a different situation. So, because sometimes people, these types of things can bring a dispute. Doesn't have to be that specific example, but this is what it means. You did something as a good deed for someone else and he's with you. This is the masala here, is that he is with you. You did not give him something and he disappeared. No, he's with you. And you're helping him while you're together. And something happened from his own action, lam yatman. Even though Al-Ariya is always madmuna. Since Al-Ariya is madmuna, Al-Ariya has to be, whether a person is negligent or not, he has to give the like of it or the value of it. But this case, he's with you. You are the one that is driving. You are the one that is in charge, but you gave him the benefit here. So there's a benefit that he's going to ride with you. So in that case, he's not guaranteeing to pay the price of it. So this is what is the original ruling of this. There's no daman here in this case. Is it clear? So let's read the fasl together, and while we're reading it, inshallah, again, make sure that every word is clear, that you understand every word and in Arabic, inshallah. He says, وَالْعَارِيَةُ سُنَّةٌ وَكُلُّ ما ينتفع به مع بقاء عينه نفعا مباحا تصح إعارته إلا البضع وعبدا مسلما لكافر وصيدا ونحوه لمحرم وأمة وأمرد لغير مأمون وتضمن مطلقا بمثل مثلي وقيمة غيره يوم تلف لا إن تلفت باستعمال بمعروف كخمل منشفة ولا إن كانت وقفا ككتب علم إلا بتفريط وعليه مؤنة ردها وإن أركب منقطعا لله لم يضمن. Okay. Every word, every مسألة, every matter. نعم. Here with the ضمان وتضمن مطلقا. It's important also with the mutun that you see where things are, where the exception refers to things like this. So it starts with وتضمن مطلقا. That means the ariya is always guaranteed. The person has to bring it back the same way. بمثل مثلين وقيمة غير يوم تلف. So وتضمن مطلقا إلا لا. So it's مطلقا in the absolute sense. لا إن تلفت. But not if it's get ruined. استعمال بمعروف, if it's the normal use. ولا إن كانت وقفا ككتب علم إلا بتفريط. And also if it's وقف ولا إن كانت وقفا, that means it is because the waqf, not even if it was waqf. So even if it's waqf, the normal use of it is okay if it's not in the original form. إلا بتفريط, except if there's negligence, then it's even the norm and the waqf is to be given back if there is tafrit. Is it clear? Anything else, Sean? Should we take the hadith? What's the hadith today? Hadith 145. Hadith 145. And as a reminder, as we know that the hadith, we're going one day from the hadith of Bulugh al-Maram and one day with hadith from Jami' Ulum al-Hikam, the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi, then the 10 hadith to complete the 50 by Ibn Rajab, rahimahullah. So 141? 145. So 145, that means it's from the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi or the 50 from Ibn Rajab. 145. The famous hadith of Al-Irbad ibn Sariya radiallahu anhu. طيب, are you guys ready? طيب, repeat إن شاء الله. عن العرباض بن سارية عن العرباض بن سارية رضي الله عنه قال وعظنا رسول الله. By the way, don't say وعظنا تجويد. It's وعظنا. It's no big deal, right? But just this is اختلاس. So it's not وعظنا, it's وعظنا. Say وعظ. وعظ. Bring it back to its original form, then add the extension. وعظنا. وعظنا. No. Like خلق. خلقنا. Not خلقنا. Right? خلقنا. خلقنا. But again, this is another major mistake. Inshallah. So وعظنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم موعظة وجلت منها القلوب وذرفت منها العيون فقلنا يا رسول الله كأنها موعظة مودع فأوصنا. قال أوصيكم بتقوى الله والسمع والطاعة وإن تأمر عليكم عبد فإنه ما يعش منكم بعدي فسيرى اختلافا كثيرا فعليكم بسنتي وسنة الخلفاء الراشدين عضوا عليها بالنواجذ وإياكم ومحدثات الأمور فإن كل بدعة ضلالة. يقول رواه أبو داود والترمذي وقال حديث حسن صحيح. So this hadith, famous hadith of Al-Irbad ibn Sariya radiallahu anhu, and he was from the people of Ahl al-Suffah, by the way, radiallahu anhu. So he said وعظنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم موعظة. وعظنا رسول الله, the messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, وعظنا, he gave us a موعظة. And al-maw'idha is the reminder, the admonition, and al-maw'idha is something that affects the heart, that gives the end of things. This is what al-maw'idha means. Al-maw'idha, if it reminds a person of what the end of things are. So make your salah because death is coming. make your salah because the hellfire is this, the Jannah is like this is how the maw'idah is. So not the maw'idah is the news of what's happening in the world, for example. That's not maw'idah. So this is maw'idah. وجلت من القلوب. الوجل is شدة الخوف, is the intensity of the fear. And this is one of the characteristics of the believers. That the believers, whenever the ayat of Allah is recited, وجلت قلوبهم, their hearts will be in that state of al-wajal. So whether it's wajilat or wajalat, قلوب منها القلوب, as a result of that, the hearts were having the fear of Allah. As a result of that, وذرفت منها العيون. العيون, the eyes. ذرفت, shed tears. So the eyes shed tears as a result of this موعظة. So they said, فقلنا يا رسول الله, they said, O Messenger of Allah, كأنها موعظة مودع. Because the hadith doesn't say to us what is exactly the موعظة. And many of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, we did not lose this موعظة, by the way. We have it. Because everything has been preserved from what the Prophet ﷺ, he said. So they said, كأنها موعظة مودع. As if this is the موعظة of a farewell موعظة. مودع is the individual that is leaving. Right? So the موعظة of someone that is leaving. So when someone is leaving, they're not going to see him again. That means his موعظة has to be the most sincere, the most, not just the most sincere, the most precise. If someone, and that's why the many ahkam and benefits that we can learn from this. Say, for example, you met someone, you're not sure if you're going to see him again or not. Right? Make sure that you focus on this. Different than someone that you have a plan for him. You know, today I'm going to give him this. Someone you might not see him again. So what is the words that you would say to him that he would benefit from? And it's usually something has to be more general and things to be clear and understood. So when they heard this from the Prophet ﷺ and how it affected them, they said, O Prophet of Allah, فَأَوْصِنَا. So give us the wasiyah, and the wasiyah also of someone that is departing. So give us the wasiyah. قال أوصيكم بتقوى الله. I give you the wasiyah of the taqwa of Allah. And this is always, a person never fails if he always gives the wasiyah for the taqwa of Allah, for people to fear Allah, to have even if you don't have time to explain now, for the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, if the Prophet ﷺ say to them, أوصيكم بتقوى الله, they will understand the meaning of it very well, linguistically, religiously, everything. But nowadays, if you say, I give you the wasiyah to have the taqwa of Allah, that means what? Fear Allah, or means to be dutiful to Allah, or to repent to Allah. All of these things, the entire deen comes under the command of having the taqwa of Allah and to shield yourself from the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So أوصيكم بتقوى الله والسمع. So this is the entire deen of Allah. والسمع والطاعة, and to listen and to obey. The taqwa of Allah includes in it السمع والطاعة, and السمع والطاعة to Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is in the absolute sense, and that's part of the taqwa of Allah. But here والسمع والطاعة is a specific one, which is to those who are in charge of you, to the people of authority over you. Anyone is in charge, have authority over you, then you have to have a sam' والطاعة. والسمع والطاعة. And that's why he says, وَإِن تَأَمَّرَ عَلَيْكُمْ عَبْدٍ. Even if تأمر from al-imara, from being the amir, even if a abd is a slave, becomes your amir, becomes your person of authority, your leader, you have to observe, this is his right upon you, to observe as-sam' wa ta'a, to listen and to obey. This is his right from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Does that has to do that in the case that he observe your rights? No. This is from you to him, whether he observe your rights or not. And he, upon him, is to observe the rights of his ra'iyah or those who depends on him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will question him if he's not fulfilling this. So this is as-samu wa ta'a. And of course, as-samu wa ta'a to other than Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam is conditioned with al-ma'ruf. If they command to do haram, then they don't do the haram. But they continue to be the samu wa ta'a in everything else, as long as it's in the ma'ruf. So, and this is something that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in that context, in this time, in this way, to warn the ummah from not observing these things. وَالسَّمْعُ وَالطَّاعَ وَإِن تَأَمَّرَ عَلَيْكُمْ عَبْدٍ. And the hadith came in many different narrations. Then he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, فَإِنَّهُ مَن يَعِشْ مِنْكُمْ. Because indeed, who would ya'ish, who would live among you, and there's a conditional statement here, الشرط here, ya'ish, that's why the harf al-illa is not there. So whoever lives among you بعدي, after me, فسيرى, he will see اختلافا كثيرا. He will see اختلاف, many differences, كثيرا, not just small اختلاف, but many اختلاف, major, minor, in principles and other than that. So many differences among the people, sects and beliefs and deviations. So then what to do? فعليكم بسنتي, be upon, and عليكم has that meaning, be upon. That means you don't leave it. بسنتي, my sunnah, my way, وسنة الخلفاء الراشدين, and the sunnah of the rightly guided Khalifa. And the Prophet ﷺ is saying that to them. That means what? That means they know the Khulafa al-Rashidin. Otherwise, if who's the Khulafa al-Rashidin? O Prophet of Allah. That means they know them. And that means the hadith was showing them. And the Prophet ﷺ stated that it's going to be Khilafa Rashida after him. Guided Khilafa according ala minhaj al-Nubuwa, upon the way of prophethood after him. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they know that this is going to be the case. Unlike those Rafida and the like of them, deviants, those who would question this. So this is wahy already given to them. So they understood that very well, because it's part of the deen to follow the sunnah, the ways of al-Khulafa al-Rashidin. Hadith in Bukhari and others, it's 30 years. And the Prophet ﷺ even specifically mentioned it 30 years specifically, which is the end of the 6 months of the Khilafah of Al-Hasan. So Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman and Ali, and the 6 months of Al-Hasan radiallahu anhu. So stay upon and follow the sunnah. If you see differences, you stay away. And even though in the time of Al-Khulafa until the end, they were all upon one thing. But it shows also that even though there was no much differences yet, it's not اختلافا كثيرا, but whatever the khilaf al-kathir comes, you go back to see and to be upon the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and sunnat al-khulafa al-rashidin, and some of the nations al-mahdiyin, the guided ones after me. And not more than that, عضوا, which means bite, عضوا عليها, upon it, what's mentioned, bin nawajid. Nawajid is the molar teeth, which is the tightest or the most strongest part where a person would not let go whatsoever. And as mentioned before, that means what? That means it's not going to be at ease. People try to pull it away from you, and you won't let go of it whatsoever. So you have to be focused, you have to be sincere, you have to be firm upon it, and all kinds of temptations and all kinds of things would let you not to follow that. But Allah preserved this deen for us to follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ and the way of the rightly guided khulafa after him. وَإِيَّاكُمْ, then the warning, and be warned against. وَمُحْدَثَاتِ الْأُمُورِ, al-umur matters. Muhdathat is the newly invented matters. فَإِنَّ كُلَّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالٍ, because indeed every bid'ah, every innovation in the deen is ضلالة, is deviation. And bid'ah is طريقة مخترعة في الدين, something that is invented in the deen, and all of it is ضلالة. There is no bid'ah hasana and bid'ah سيئة. They're all ضلالة, as the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, وَكُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالٍ. And anything else that people would use and manipulate some of the words, it refers to the linguistic meanings of al-bid'ah. But bid'ah is haram. Bid'ah at all times is forbidden. It's the worst thing that a person can do to himself, is to introduce in the deen. And the deen is wahy. So aqidah, ibadah, all of that is to follow and not to introduce things, whether it's in its original form or the sifa of it. So al-bid'ah is in the original form of the ibadah and the sifa of it. The dhikr of Allah, not to make something else from scratch. And the way to make it, for example, as an example for the dhikr, the way to make dhikr is also deen. That means you don't invent a way to make dhikr. You only follow the way of the Prophet ﷺ, and the severe warning against those who change in this. So this hadith is, as mentioned in the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi, one of the foundation of the deen. And all of it is together like this. And as you see, your opinions would come across to try to, justify for the person, but they're so evil, but they're doing this. The hadith comes in place. And the clarity of it and the fiqh of it is very well established, and there's no doubts about it whatsoever, versus those who would follow their hawa and their desires in these matters. So, any questions? Do we still have the now other conditions for the obedience of wulatul umur? The only condition is as the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخلق. There's no obedience for anyone in disobeying Allah. So if they command the people to do sin, then it's not permissible to obey them in that sin. But if they command the people to do something fard, mashallah, of course they should be obeyed. If it's to command the people to do something recommended, mashallah, it's good. If it's something from the mubahat, from the permissible matters, then it's must to obey them. I think there's not contradicting the deen. But sins, no, not to obey them in the sin. And al-sam' wa ta'a is one thing, and al-khuruj is something else. Al-khuruj is to revolt against them, is to disloyal oneself or to oppose them. This is also forbidden as long as ما أقاموا فيكم الصلاة, as long as they establish the salah. And it's not conditioned with the righteousness of the ruler. It doesn't have to be a righteous one. If he even the most wicked one, as long as he's a Muslim. So that means that samu ta'a is to be observed for him. And that's also different than praising him. People, they don't have to praise, right? But they, samu ta'a, not to revolt, all of these things, is deen, is wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the details of that is because the ummah is afflicted with this. And subhanAllah, the more the person sees things, it's a very sad reality where people are using reason and turning away from the wahy from Allah. And that's why when we go to the Sunnah al-Khulafa al-Rashidin, how did they deal with this matter? And how their khuruj was even with the word is considered to be khuruj. Avoid the evil consequences of it. And it's not because of the evil consequences of it, it's because of the wahy from Allah. So this is diyana, this is deen, and not just a way to protect oneself or out of the fear of someone. No, this is a matter of deen. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when the Sahaba clearly asked him, when to remove them. He says, they asked him, should we, هل أفلا ننابذهم? The munabadha is what? Is when you become a rival to them, meaning the rulers. He said, لا ما أقاموا فيكم الصلاة. No, as long as they establish the salah among you. If they prevent you from making your salah, shut down the masajid, no salah. Right? That's the only thing. Then it's permissible. And then whether it's for them to do it or not is according to their ability. If they have the ability, then they can go for it. But if they don't have the ability, there's no sin on them. Because things then has to be weighed on the benefits and the loss. This is as far as the ruling is concerned. And the other hadith is that إِلَّا أَن تَرَوْا كُفْرًا بَوَاحًا عَلَيْكُمْ فِيهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ بُرْهَانٍ. And the words cannot be as clear. For some reason, this is, again, when we go back to the language, there is ujma in understanding the ayat and the Quran, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Al-ujma is when someone doesn't know how the words are, how it was used then. So when the Prophet ﷺ said, except unless you see kufran, kufr, bawahan. Al-bawah is what? Openly, alani, clear. Not just that, alaykum fihi min Allahi burhan. You have burhan. Burhan is not dalil even. Al-burhan is the dalil that is the most clear evidence of all things from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when no two people would have doubts, that this is a clear kufr. Someone would say this is, whatever, kufr, clear kufr. In that case, then it's what? It's wajib? No, it's permissible. Then is for them to deal with it according to the capacity. And where they would refer to in this case, their ulama. If there's no ulama, then there is fawda and chaos and evil actions. There's here the attendance code, inshallah, is borrowing or Ariya. Borrowing or Al-Ariya. Al-Ariya or borrowing. English, Arabic, whatever you like, inshallah. So we'll stop here, inshallah. And one thing, subhanAllah, when it comes to these types of things, we wish that we can have even from the morning to the evening, sitting together, reading the books of ilm, mashallah, with breaks, inshallah. And the more the person gets used to something, the more that after sometimes it becomes an enjoyable thing. But there's always the level of struggle and putting effort. Even with, you want to memorize the Quran, You have to sacrifice. There is no such a thing as it comes with ease. The convenience of all things, it doesn't work like this with ilm, with knowledge, with the deen of Allah, but with a small sacrifice. So, for example, you go out of your norm, out of your comfort zone, if it's correct to say. You want to memorize the Quran every day, put an hour in it. And this hour is never to be compromised whatsoever. You would sit in this hour, this is your job, that you get $1 million for per hour. You would forget about your family, about your kids, about everybody, because this is the hour where I'm studying the Quran, for example. Then, if this hour is being done for every day, after 30 days, after 60 days, whatever there is, this is ibadah, then you go from that state of the struggle to something else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is shakur. So things has to change. So then the person will go into being at ease with it. Then he would never want to lose this hour whatsoever. And I'm not saying hour doesn't have to be an hour, but anything in our life till it becomes the norm that he does not want to leave it whatsoever. And even that is all by the help and the guidance from Allah. So the same thing when it comes to knowledge, even with what we're doing here, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening. This is just to observe our weaknesses and to get us encouraged, inshallah ta'ala, so that we give our life afterwards and our time to learn and to be upon the matters of ilm and deen, to also spread the authentic knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasallam. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy, inshallah. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, baraka Muhammad wa sahbihi wa sallam. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك